Welcome guys. In this section, I will explain the JavaScript fundamentals which are required for automation testing. Okay, so these days many automation tools are coming which are relying on JavaScript based. So you should have these fundamentals with you so that you can easily learn any automation tool which is on JavaScript based. Okay, the information what I'm going to give in this section will help you to achieve that. So let's start from the scratch from Hello World program. So I have opened the Visual Studio. You can download this from Google, Visual Studio Code. So once you open this, this is how it looks. So let's start by creating a new file in our Visual Studio Code. So file, new file, and let's first save this file. And basics1.js. So you need to give .js extension when you create a new file so that the JavaScript related syntax will get highlighted in your editor. Okay. Now, so to start and print something in output using JavaScript, so there is a method called console.log. So using this, you can print anything in the output. So let me say hello world. Now you have written this statement and you are expecting to see something in your output. So let's try to print by running this program. So how to run this program? It's very simple guys. Go to the terminal and you are at this path where this file is present in users owner directory. So in this path you can give node. Basically node is an engine which will help you to execute your JavaScript based files. Okay, so node basics1.js. So give this command and then it will execute this JavaScript file. Okay, so for that make sure you have node.js installed in your system and set in your system variables. We already discussed this in our previous lectures of setting up node home, downloading it, and also downloading Visual Studio Code. If not, please watch that video and come back. Okay, right, you see that in the output it just printed hello world. Okay, so make sure you save the file before you run this command, because if you don't save and when you try to run in terminal, then you won't get the updated output on the changes you made. Now this is how you print. Now if you want to write any comments in your file, you can just write them with 2 forward slashes, and whatever you write here, these will not execute and it will not impact your test execution. So similarly, if you have comments in multiple lines, this is how you can give. So you can start with forward slash star and end up like this, and here you can write a number of lines which will be also treated as a comment. So if you run this again, you see that nothing is impacted with the comments what you have written. So this is just a basic hello world program to print in the output, and in the JavaScript we use console.log. So this is a self-explanatory, right? In the console, this is our console. Okay, in the console we are asking to log the information. So in Java, same thing we call as a system.out.println. In Python we use print method, and in the JavaScript we use console.log. Okay, so with this basic idea, let's try to understand what are the variables in JavaScript. So in JavaScript, variables are very loosely typed. So that means variables can hold values with any type of data. Now, if you are aware of Java language, if you want to store some integer, then you should tell like this: int a equals to 4. You need to explicitly tell that this variable is holding integer. And if you want to store any string, then you should tell like this: string b equals to hello. Okay, so if you don't write this written type, your variable cannot understand what type of input I am getting. But whereas in JavaScript, these variables will have a smart intelligence that they can decide at runtime by seeing the nature of this value, that if it is a number or if it is a string or boolean or any big decimal, anything. So you need not deliberately mention. JavaScript inbuilt can take care based upon the value you passed. Okay, so that is why you really need not give any data type in the beginning, but if it is a variable, you should at least tell that it's a variable, that you can tell by writing a keyword called var. Okay, so this way it will know that it's a is a variable. See, in JavaScript, there are different engines, ES5, ES6, ES7, ES8. So basically, these are nothing but different versions. So until ES5 version, for storing or any variable value, we use a keyword called var. But from ES6 engine, so from that version, they have introduced two more keywords to represent variable. Okay, that is let and const. So these are available from JavaScript ES6 engine. But our legacy browsers, whatever you are browsing now, they still rely on ES5 only. But somewhere they will start updating. So instead of var, you can use these variables. But still in ES6 also var is available. But problem here is that in var there are some slight disadvantages. So to overcome that disadvantages, they came up with a new way of identifying that variables using these keywords. But that doesn't mean that var is deprecated from ES6. You can still use that. Now, so here basically const is little bit different, but var and let are almost same based upon what engine you use. If you are using JavaScript ES5, then let will not be recognized. You should be using minimum ES6 to have this let keyword. So now you get a question, what exactly is difference between var, let and const? Okay, so to explain that, you need to know some knowledge on JavaScript. Okay, probably after next 40-45 minutes, after I explain loops, arrays, functions, then I can explain you better where exactly these are different. Okay, at this point of time, let's assume that we are on the latest engine, and to declare a variable keyword, let's go with let. Okay, you can use var also. I will come later what is the thin line of difference between these, right? So at one point of time in our agenda, there is a point where I can explain understanding var, let, const keywords. So for now, let's understand and believe that if you want to declare any variable, then the identifier what you have to use to tell JavaScript that this is a variable is let keyword. Okay, but you need not tell which data type it is, if it is a number or integer. If you hover on it, sometimes Visual Studio also will tell you what type of data type it is. Let me see. Okay, now it's not coming, but yeah, here it is. You see that it's a number. So in JavaScript, there is a data type available called number. I'll come there shortly, don't worry, right? So this is how you stored a value in variable. And if you want to print that value, you can say console.log a. That's all, right? Save the project and run, and you will see 4 in the output. So what difference you have observed from previous printing and now? So here we printed a variable by giving a value to that variable. So now for you to understand what kind of data type it is it a number or a string or a boolean? To understand that, in JavaScript there is a method called type of, okay, and pass that variable. So this method will tell you what kind of data type it is. So if you want to see the data type in the output, then you can say console.log, wrap it in that step, and if you try to run, it will tell you that a variable is a data type of integer. Sorry, it's a number. In Java we say integer, but in JavaScript there are no variations like integer, float. Float is basically for decimal values in Java. So everything is one commonly treated as a number data type in JavaScript. Okay, so even if you declare another variable with b equals to 235.6, some decimal number, but still when you try to see what kind of variable it is, you see that it still shows as a number. So here I'm trying to print the variable type of b by storing it. Okay, so this is how you will know what kind of data type it is, right? And for every variable we are using this let keyword so that it recognizes this as a variable. We'll continue the discussion in the next lecture. Thank you. Alright, so now let's create string variable. So we have seen how to create a number variable with value related to number data type. So let c equals to, c is our variable and this time it holds string called Rahul Shetty. Okay, and when you try to print what type of variable it is, then it will show you that this is nothing but string. And similarly, there is another famous data type which is Boolean. So I hope you know that Boolean data type will have only two values, true or false. So let's create one variable called required and let's mark it as true. Okay, and I will try to print that variable now with type of required. So what type it is? So basically type of method will tell what kind of data type it is. So save your file before you run this command and look at here, number, string and Boolean. Okay, so there are two more other data types we have which are null and undefined. So basically if you store null value into any variable, then that data type is null, and undefined is like if you don't create and assign any value to the variable, then that returns undefined data type, right? But these are the three commonly used JavaScript data types and which are famous in writing the scripts. Apart from that, null and undefined are two more. So these are the data types. Good, we understood. Now can I use any assignment operators on these values? Now let's say you have a and b. So what happens when you do a plus b? So it sums up two variables, right? So this is a number and this is a number. It sums up, and from these two variables you can create another variable which will store the sum of these two values, right? Now if you can print them. So if you are already aware of programming language, you might think that trainer is starting from very basic level, but don't worry, unknowingly the gears of the teaching will speed up and you will start seeing very new concepts of JavaScript. So there is a purpose of starting in this way, because these are some minute things which you should be understand and familiar before you see a lot more concepts in JavaScript. Okay, so this is how you can sum up and assign the value to one variable. Okay, so equals to stands for assignment and plus is for operator, which is an addition. So similarly in the place of a plus b, right, so here it says identifier c has already been declared, right? So if you change this to var and here also var, then this will work. Let's see. Okay, so c is already declared is what it's complaining. Okay, because you already stored Rahul Shetty and you are again trying to create a new variable. Okay, it's not just assigning, you are trying to declare again. So what is difference between declare and reassigning? Okay, so when you try to reassign, you can do like this. But when you use var keyword again, so that means you are freshly declaring this. You are not assigning it. So before we used let and it complained with error. So I replaced that let keyword with var and let's see what happens. You see that? No error. So you got one difference now, difference between var and let. So what is the difference? So we cannot redeclare variable with let keyword, but possible with var. So it's up to you now to use var or let based upon the situation what you have in your coding area. You can decide which keyword to use. Okay, so like this, when situation comes, I will explain the differences so that you can correlate. So at this time I am sticking to var because I don't want test to fail. Good. So 238.6, which is sum, and you can go ahead and subtract it, multiply it. If you want to subtract, you can use minus, and if you want to multiply, you can use star operator. Next, so there is one operator called not apart from this arithmetic operations. So here let required equals to true, right? So you printed, when you say console.log of required, this will print true. So if you want to make it false, so what do you do? So you can just have a not operator with an exclamatory in the beginning, so that this value will be reversed. Okay, and this applies to only boolean. Okay, so you cannot reverse the numbers, right? 2 cannot be reversed to any other. So true or false are boolean. So you can add a negation operator with exclamatory symbol to reverse it. Okay, now when you run, you should see false in the output. You see that? So that's possible using this negation operator. Nice. So now you understood the importance of redeclaring, right? So now I will show you what do you mean by reassigning. Okay, so you can make a let keyword to work here. If you remove var from here, it will work. Let's see. Instead, I will comment out this. So when you tried let c equals to a plus b, it did not work. So I'll write a kind of documentation so that you can refer this and understand. It did not work because this is the reason, variable with let keyword. So instead, so without redeclaring, you can reassign like this. Okay, so here bring it back to let. So if you bring it back to let, so what happens now? Earlier it did not work because you redeclared. So I am not redeclaring now. The same variable which is already declared, I am reassigning it another value. So this is accepted by let. Let's see. You see, this is accepted. This did not throw any error. So what did you understand from here? So reassigning is allowed with the let, right? But if you take var, then both are allowed. Redeclaring and reassigning, it's up to you. So you can have this as a comments that if you put var c equals to a plus b, this is also allowed. So multiple ways of declaring it so that you can decide if you are doing redeclare or reassigning. So I told you that there is another keyword called const. Okay, let's talk about that now. Okay, I'm touching on high level. We can still discuss more when we discuss about functions and classes. Don't worry about it. The const keyword, the difference between let and const is because const and let are introduced from ES6 engine. So in const, the name itself says that that's a constant. That means you cannot reassign also. The only difference between const and let is that you just can't do this one as well because it's a constant. When you assign a value to it, that should stay constant in your entire script duration, right? So you cannot tweak it. Now, so this is working, but if I change it to const, it will kick us with an error saying this cannot be reassigned. You see, assignment, you are assigning to a constant variable which is not allowed. So you can use this keyword in your program whenever you think that this variable cannot be changed in your program. If that is your requirement, you can use const. But if you think that it can be reassigned to another value, then go with let. But if you think that this variable should be redeclared again another time in your program, then go with var. I hope now you understood. Okay. So that's a one line of differences between these three keywords. Okay. So we can stick to var or let. It's up to you. We can leave it there. So in the next lecture, I will start showing some conditions and loops and see how that works in JavaScript. Thank you. Hey, welcome back. So in this lecture, let us see loops and conditions in JavaScript. So let me create another file. So file, new file, and first we will save it with the .js extension so that, JavaScript related syntax will get enabled. So let's call it as a basics2.js. Cool. Okay, so I will declare a keyword. Let's declare with const this time. Okay, const a equals to required, or give some nice name for a boolean, flag. This is commonly used term, right? Flag equals to true. So you declared a boolean constant variable with a value of true. So there is an if condition, just like in any other programming language, if you are aware. So if you can give the condition, if condition matches, then it will execute this, and if condition do not match, then else. Okay, so if you want to have multiple conditions, then you can say else if, and you can still continue it, just like any other programming language. So here what you want to do, so if condition will only look for expression to become true. If that expression is true, then it will go inside this block. Okay, so I will give this a variable. So this variable is true, so obviously this will go inside this, and it will print console.log condition satisfied. As I said, don't ignore that knowing that I already know this, because some minute things will be there in JavaScript which you want to know, just like how I have explained const, let, var in the previous lecture. So take every point in your mind and analyze it. Okay, just don't be incautious that you already know the things from other programming language. So condition satisfied, condition not satisfied. Nice. So let's run and see what does it print. Okay, condition satisfied. So what I will do now, I will put the negation operator. So what happens if I put negation operator? Will it work? And I have a question here. So this I declared as a constant, right? So that means I am altering this variable. Okay, so what happens then? Will it throw any error, or it will turn to false? Let's see. Let's run this. Condition not satisfied. So that means this true successfully converted into false, and else block got executed. So from here you can understand that, see, you cannot change this variable value, but here you are just reversing it, but you are not storing anything inside this. So basically what const keyword tells that I will not have any value apart from true. So here, though you are negating, the flag variable value will still be true only, but this will go inside this because you are putting negation here. So that becomes, this expression is becoming false, not this variable value. Okay, so this is how people confuse you in interviews. The expression we are converting into false, but this variable value will still be true. So here, if you try to print console.log flag, and technically it came inside condition not satisfied, right? But you see that that value is still true, the expression problem here. Nice. So if else condition, so you understood that it should have an expression which becomes true. So that is about if. And there is another one called while. So how does you write while loop, and why do we need while loop? Let's try to understand. So while keyword, right, basically if the expression is true, this loop will keep on executing until this condition, whatever you write inside this, become false. If this never become false, then this loop will go to infinite. See, there is a difference between if condition and while loop. Here, if condition is true, this will get executed only one time. But whereas in while loop, if condition matches, then it will just keep on running n number of times. Let's say now I would just give while of true. Right? So this condition matches, loop will run. And that will never stop. I am inside loop. So this will go to infinite loop. You see that it will never stop. Come after 25 years. If your laptop is still working, then you will see this log going up. Okay. So let's stop this execution. Control C. Oops. Kill terminal. Okay. Let's open freshly because we damaged that. Okay, so then why do we use while loop? So basically you will have one expression inside it. Now for example, you want to increment I value from 1 to 10. So I will start with let I equals to 0, right? And then I will tell here I plus plus. So what do you mean by I plus plus? So that means I value will increment by one number every time. So this is nothing but like this, I equals to I plus 1. So same thing, as a shortcut we can just write I plus plus. So when you say I plus 2, then it increments by twice. Okay, so here I will put while I less than 10. So it starts with 0. As 0 is less than 10, so it will increment 0 plus plus, it will become 1. And here you can print I value, which is 1. So like this loop will continue. Now I is 1, 1 less than 10, 2 less than 10. So it will go until 10, because every time loop is running, one number is incrementing. And when you say 10 less than 10, that becomes false. So it comes out of the loop. So basically you should write one condition, and your loop should have some code which can manipulate the variables given in the condition. In that case only we will suggest to use while loop. Okay. Now in real time, if you in automation testing, if you think that where I can use, so let's assume that you have 25 links and you have to verify in the first 10 links some functionality. Okay, then you start with I equals to 0 and you put like this, and you verify every time when you come inside, you pull one link from the array. So you will first store 25 links in an array. So for the first time, 0 index of array will be picked and the code will be executed. In the place of console.log, you will write your own code. So this loop will run 10 times. So first 10 links details you can retrieve by writing like this. Okay, so I'm just giving you some weird example that if you have any requirement that these many has to be validated, you can put in loop and do that. So this is one way. And now when you run this, let's save that. Node basics 2.js. See that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's not just a number. If it's basically condition until condition become false. Okay, so if you don't know when condition become false, then just wrap it in while loop. So this will keep on running until condition become false. Once condition become false, it will execute and exit this while loop. Similarly, there is a do while. So the only difference between while and do while is that in do while, one round of loop will run before it checks condition. See, now here it checks condition. If condition is true, then it's going inside and it's executing. With the do while loop, no matter if condition is true or false, one round of loop will definitely run, and then only it will check for condition. Okay, so now let's say while I greater than 10, so this condition is false, then it will never go inside this. Same condition you can put it here, while I greater than 10. What happens? I equals to 0, it starts from here. While I greater than 10, 0 greater than 10 not possible, so condition false, it won't go inside, it will exit, come here. And in do while, you can still write this. Okay, and then you can put condition, and finally when you check in the output of I, the value will be 1. So whenever you have any requirement that you should keep on monitoring the status, but if you want to execute code once and then monitor status, then go with a do while loop. If you don't have any requirement of executing once and then validate, then directly go with a while. Okay, so if you wonder where would I use that, don't worry, based upon the automation tool course you enrolled, we will use these loops heavily and you will know in real time where exactly one can be used. Make sure to give this semicolon, because when you write a do while loop, you have to end your while loop with semicolon. Okay, do remember this. Okay, so let's run this. You see that I turned to 1 and this did not go inside. So that's how while and do while works in JavaScript. And there is another famous loop called for loop. I'll talk about that in the next lecture. Thank you. Alright, so let's talk about for loop now. So when we already have while loop, then why did we choose for loop? Let's try to understand. So I'll create another loop for let keyword k equals to 0. So just follow the way I am writing, you will understand what I'm trying to do here. K equals to 10, k plus plus. So basically the same thing what I have achieved with a while loop, I'm trying to do now with for loop. Console.log k. Right, so what happens? So this loop first of all will initialize a variable k to 0, and if 0 is less than or equals to 10, condition satisfied, just like how it checks here. See, we initialized here and we are checking the condition. So both the things are happening here, and what the action we want to perform inside, that also we are passing as a third argument. So all these three actions we are wrapping into one single for block, and then we are going inside. Okay, so basically this code will start from 0 until this condition become false, 0 less than 10. It will increment and then it will print the values. It's pretty straightforward, right? So let's run this. You see that as it is, it has printed all the values in the output. Now when I have to use for loop and when I have to use while loop then. So use for loop when you know that how many times you have to run this loop. Okay, because in while loop it's not just about run, you can use it for any statement also, because while only looks if the condition is true. It can be anything. Now here I can write like this. Let me make a quick modification for a while loop with a new syntax. Now I would say let required equals to true. Okay, and then while required, it will go inside, because when it is trying to evaluate required, this have true, then it will go inside and it will print required, which becomes true, right? and then I will make required equals to false. Now as it made to false, now when the loop is executing again, while of false, gone. So it will come out of the loop, right? Let's see. You see, it printed true inside only one time. The loop executed only one time. So basically this while loop is used to evaluate any kind of expression as a condition. But whereas for loop, it will just run for n number of times. Okay, you cannot write like while run this until k required becomes true. Okay, if you write it in top here, so you cannot do this. It starts from 0, it increments for every loop until this become false. You cannot tell like that. Okay, so when you run this, you see this got completely broke. It's running infinite amount of time. So you have to decide if it is like, you know, how many times you have to repeat loop, then you can go for loop. But if you want to repeat loop based upon some condition evaluation, that if it becomes true or false, then choose while loop. Okay, so this is what I can give you suggestion here. And next, so I have a requirement here. So I want to get the numbers which are common multiples of 2 and 5. Okay, now for example, let's take 3 or 4. 4, 2 2s are 4, but you cannot get a multiple of 4 with 5. Okay, so what is the number which can be commonly got with a multiple of 2 and 5? It's 10, right? 2 5s are 10 and 5 2s are 10. Now, so that should be your output. So given two values and you want to print the numbers which can be commonly retrieved from 1 to 10. Let's see. So let's use this same for loop. It starts from 0 and up to 10 times. So basically I'm using for loop because my requirement is that from 1 to 10 give me common multiple values of 2 and 5. So that means from 1 to 10. So I know that this loop should run up to 10 times for every number. So that's why I used k equals to 0, k less than 10 and k plus plus. So now we should build a logic for every number what you get from here. Okay, so let's start from k equals to 1 because 0 is obviously multiple of any number. So if k is what you get, right? K percentile 2 equals to 0. So if you take 1 percentile 2 is not 0. But when you take 2 percentile 2 is 0. So that means a multiple of 2 can be done only if that percentile value is 0. Okay, so percentile is nothing but a remainder. When you divide by 4 by 2, 2 2s are 4, 0. But when you take 3, 2 1s are 2, 1 will be the remainder. So the remainder is not equals to 0. 1 is the remainder, right? So then it's not part of that. Okay, and you see that there are 2 equals to here. If you want to compare this value with another value, you should not use 1 equals to, because 1 equals to is like assignment. You are assigning 0 to I. Okay, so that is how assignment operator equals to is treated. But when you want to compare two values, then you should give one more equals to. If you give only 1 equals to, this value will try to assign to this variable and it will throw an error. So you give another equals to, and this way these two values now will get compared. Now this loop iterate 10 times, so every number it will just compare and it will print in the output. So I will write an if condition. So print me the number only when it is a multiple of 2. Let's start with this and then I will bring the common logic of 2 and 5. So what would be our output now? So our output would be 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. Okay, let's see. You see that output is clearly given as 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This one is something coming from top. Let me do one thing. So just for you to see variation, I will print console log stars like this, and I will run it again so that it will be differentiated. Nice. So after this stars, our output is present. So we are able to now successfully print multiples of 2. Okay. Now, but my goal here is that I want the numbers which are commonly multiplied by 2 and 5 also. So here out of these values, 2 cannot be multiplied by 5, 4, 6, 8, only 10 is possible. 5 2s are 10. So my output should be 10 with this logic. That's what my goal. So this is one condition, right? So you want another condition also to match where that k should be equals to 0 with percentile 5. Okay, so remainder you will get 0 only for 10. 5 2s are 6, 7, 8. For everything you will get remainder more than 0. Right? So your loop should satisfy these two conditions, then only it should go inside. So then how will you tell to your if condition to check for these two conditions, right? So for that there is an operator called ampersand, right? So when you give ampersand for the two conditions, so that means it will go inside this logic only when both returns true. Even if one of it return true, it will not go inside. Okay, so both will returns true only for the number 10. For any other, it will not go inside. So now run it again and see what happens. You see, only 10 is printed. So these two conditions are satisfied only for the digit 10. Okay, so that's how you can use if condition and for loops together. And if you know that up to how many numbers you have to do it. Now for 1 to 100 you want to check the same. See, these are the values 10, 20, 30 which are commonly multiplied by both 2 and 5. So let's say now you want to get the values printed if it is either 2 or 5. Both are accepted or at least one is accepted. If that is the case, how would you turn this condition? In that case, you have to use OR operator instead of ampersand. Like this. If you use this operator, then either if this condition become true also, it will go inside this block. Even if this condition true also, it will go inside. Even if both satisfies. In that case, you will get so many output, right? Let's see. You see, you have all multiples of 2 and multiples of 5. Okay, so this is how you can use operators in JavaScript, and you can integrate your logic with your if condition and in the for loop. Now, let's say I want only first 3 values. Okay, I want to 100. Let me come back with 2 and 5 logic. So originally we are trying to write a logic which should be commonly multiplied with 2 and 5. Both should be satisfied. But you are getting a lot of numbers from 1 to 100. I want only first 3 digits only. Okay. So how do you tell to your script to have only for first 3 digits? So in that case, I'll do one thing. I'll create another variable called n, and this variable will start from, I'll assign it to 0. Okay. So once condition matches, so that means first value you got, which is 10, right? And I will go inside and I would put n plus plus. So n will become 1, right? And again the next match will found at 20, which both are matches. So this, it will go inside block and n will become 2. And again it will find for 30, it will go inside and n will become 3, right? So after n becomes 3, I want to stop my execution. I don't want further. But here there are up to 100, right? It's still giving me 40, 50, 60. I don't want to go with all these. In that case, I can write one more if condition inside this if condition to tell when if n equals to 3 reaches, then just break. So this break will break this loop. Okay. So when you use this statement, the execution, though it is in the middle, it will not continue and do for 100. It will just stop your entire loop and come out of this loop. and whatever you have next it will execute, but this will just come out of this loop. Okay, so if you have only one statement, you need not give braces, you can directly pass it here, or you can still give. That's okay. Let's see. You see that only first three values are written after it got break. So this is where you use a break statement in your JavaScript, and you can use nested if condition blocks like this. Alright, so that's pretty much about how do you want to use for loop, and you got the idea, right? If you have something assignment which you need to evaluate to true or false, go with while, and if you have something which you want to run for n number of times,
welcome back.
Then use.
So in this lecture, let's talk about
right?
arrays and
Thank
its
you.
methods with detailed examples. Okay, so when you are dealing with any JavaScript automation, arrays will come into very handy to perform manipulations on the data and to come out with the logic of executing the scenarios. So let's start with the base on what is array and how do we declare that in the JavaScript. So for this, I will create one new file, and let me save this file with base6 3.javascript. So array is a collection of elements. So in the last lecture, you have created a variable with the let keyword and stored one value called 0. So if you have a set of values, then you can store all them in one container called array. So now let's say you want to create an array which stores 6 elements. Okay, in that case you can declare like this: array of 6, and let's say these are the marks of the student. Okay, student have around 6 subjects in his academic career, and for each subject you will get a marks, right? Score, basically how much he got marks in the exam. So total 6 subjects, so you will get 6 related marks. So this is one way to create a variable which can hold 6 values. Instead, if you want to directly declare that values, so here you are just telling that how much length that array should be there, but you are not initializing what are those 6 values. So you can do that also directly by creating an object for this array. So new array. So if you want to create an object, then you have to give this new operator, memory allocation operator, and here where you can give the marks. So I want to store 20, 40, 35, 12 and 37. Out of 100, these are the marks the student got in each and every subject, right? So you can store this again into a new variable. So can you use like this? If you have declared let keyword, then you cannot redeclare it. Okay, so that is what we have seen in our earlier lectures, right? The difference between let, where and const. So this is a redeclaration which is not allowed. So to make this work, either you have to change it to where. So in where you are allowed to redeclare. So if you want to strict to keep it let, then you can either change and give a new name to this variable, so that way it will not throw any compile error. Okay, so let's stick with where or let. That doesn't matter in this specific arrays class. Okay, so in this lecture, whatever you keep, that will not affect our outcome of execution. Right, so this is one way of doing it. You have initialized total 6 values. But there is one shortcut where people go with it. Instead of using this array class explicitly, you can simply declare like this as well: marks equals to, just create a square bracket. This is your array, and you can give all the 6 elements or how many you can have into this array like this. This is also valid statement. Okay, so which one do you think it makes sense for you to proceed in this course? Choose this, because this is simple and yet effective. The square brackets clearly tells that it's an array. Instead of using this, you can do like this.
Okay, I'm just showing you different syntaxes available, so you should not get confused when you come across something like this. Right. So you successfully created a marks array and it have all these values. Now to access the elements present in the array, you can access them with array name, and in 0th index this will get stored, first index, second, third, fourth and fifth. Okay, so index count always starts with a 0. Now if you want to access the value present in second index 0, 1, 2, you can simply say marks in square bracket give me the second one. So this will give you the output of 35 should be your output. Okay, so that's how you can access the values in the array using the index. Okay, this is one logic. You can also assign values in the array. Okay, so this is retrieving the value present in the array, right? So you can still assign, let's say I want to change this number to 14. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, third index. So you can give like this. That's all. So 14 number is assigned to the third index of marks array. So third index is nothing but 12, right? And now when you try to print this entire array, the new array now should show up 14 instead of 12. Okay, so your output in this case will be something like this, right? So now you know how to access element and also how to update the element in the array. Now if you want to know the length of the array, looking at here you can tell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Total 6 elements are there, right? The length is 6. But there is also a method in JavaScript called length. This will give you the total number of elements you have in your array. So in our case there are 6. So 6 will be the output, right? So don't confuse between the index and the length. Index starts from 0, 0, 1. But when you are counting the size always starts with 1. That's obvious, right? When you are counting few items which are present before you, you cannot count this as a 0 item, right? But whereas index, it starts from 0. So in this case, length will be 6, right? So let me run this program and see if we are getting this expected output as the way we designed. So to run this program, node basics3.js. Okay, so there is an error here, and obvious because you did not change it to var. So when you use the let keyword, then that cannot be redeclared, which is what we discussed. So I forgot to change the first line, so that's why you got that error, and it clearly says that marks have been already declared. Now change it to var and you won't get that error. You see that? Output 35, first one, and the second one 20, 40, 35, 14, good. 6 is the count, great. So these are the basic methods which you have in array. Next, so let's say you want to add one more element at the end of the array. Okay, so you want to increase your array size by adding one more element. How do you do that? It's very simple, guys. Array dot push. Push is a method which will help you to append new element to an array. Okay, so let's add 64 or 65, right? So when you now try to print your new array, this should look something like this. After you append, if you try again, it will give you like this. So this is your new array with a new element added at the end. Next, so if you want to delete the element from the end, so you added one element with push. If you want to delete which is present at the end, again you can delete that with the help of a method called marks.pop. So this will just delete the last element from your array. So the last element what you just added is 65. So after you do this pop method, it should give you the back original method. right? And similarly, you added an element at the end, right? If you want to add the element at the beginning, okay, sometimes you want to add at the beginning as well. So for that also we have one method called unshift. So this method will add any element in the beginning of your array. You see, insert at the start of the array. So these will really come into handy when you are doing any logical operations in your automation code. So that's why I'm teaching you all this now. Right, so this adds in the beginning, this adds in the end, and this deletes at the end. So after all these operations, let's try to print the original array. And now I will run this program and let's see if things are going as expected. Right, so 100 mark.length is 6, and when you pushed 65, you see that 65 is added at the end, and then you popped up again. Okay, and when you popped up, 65 gone, disappeared, and you did unshift by adding 12 in the beginning. So again 12 is also added, 12, 20, 40. The 65 is gone because you did pop, right? So that's about the base array operations you can play with, but there is still a lot about these arrays which I will be talking in my next lecture. Thank you. Alright, so let's continue our discussion on arrays. So there is one more method which will tell you that what is the index of this 35 or any element. So earlier you have done a method, where is that? Yeah, here. So basically when you pass an index, it gave you the value, right? Now you can also get reverse. When you give the value, it will tell you on what index it is present. So to get that reverse, marks dot index of. So this method will give you the value to locate. So let's say I will write 100. Okay, and when you try to print, it will tell you in which index you have that 100 element. So in our case, it's in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I guess. And we added unshift, right? So 12 will add in the beginning. So somewhere 0, 1, 2, 3, 6th, I guess. Let's see. You see, 6 is the output. So this is how it tell you the index. Now, if you want to check whether the element is present in the array or not, this is very important, guys. In automation, we will frequently use this. So my goal is to check whether a digit called 120 is present in the array or not. I have to validate. How can I validate? So marks, this is my array, right? Dot includes. So this is the method which will check the number what you gave here. So the element to search for, I want to search for 120. So this will not exist because our array is a score which is maximum 100 number, right? So when you give 120, this 120 will check if it is included in this marks array. If it is not included, it will return false. If it is included, if it presents true. And so this is a method which will help you to check whether something is present in the array. And when you are doing automation testing, we will have some of our expected results and actual results we will get from the browser into an array, and then we will check if the expected result is present in the array which we got from the browser values, right? So now let's see 120 is present or not. So this should return false because it's not there. Here you go, right? That's how you can do search in the array. Now you can also break the array into some sub areas. Now this is an array, right? Now let's say you want to break from here or from 35 to 37. You want to create sub array from the main array. Okay, so let's see. On the main array there is a method called slice. So this slice will actually take the start digit and end digit, and then it will create a section of your array, right? So you have to start from here. So 0 1 2 2 comma, and you want to end here, right? So 0 1 2 3 4, then you have to give fifth one. When you say 2 comma 5, this will print from 2 to 4. Okay, so this is the maximum digit which it will not include in the result. So if you need until fourth point, you have to give fifth 5 here, so that it exactly gets fourth. Okay, so let me write this method on top, because here we are performing again unshift. We are doing so many things here, so order may change. So if I write here, I can correctly see my output now. So after you perform slice, you will get sub array, right? You can store that sub marks, let's call like this, right? And then see here I am not giving any variable like where or let. You can still give, but this is optional here, because you are getting slice of your main array. That array is var, so obviously this will also be var only by default, even if you don't give. JavaScript have that intelligence, right? So let me print this. Let's see how the output went. This should be in the beginning, right? Yeah, you see here, this is the first one we want to print, 35 12 37. So if you need only 35 comma 12, then give up to fourth, so that it takes from 2 to 3. So that's how you can create sub array from main array using slice method. All right. Now, so let me do one simple for loop to iterate over this array. Now, if you want to print all the elements present in this array, so you can write a for loop for let I equals to 0, I less than. So I have to start from 0th index until the last index. Okay, so how will I get the maximum index of any array? Maximum of index of array is nothing but length of the array, right? So here, what is the length of array? 6. So maximum index of array will be 5, because 0 1 2 3 4 5. So length of array minus 1. So you can do like this, I less than marks dot length. So it will take up to 5 only. It starts from 0 and I less than 6. That means 0 1 2 3 4 5. So for all the indexes, this can loop. I plus plus, sorry. And here inside marks of I. Okay, so if you give like this, you can print one by one element in the array individually, isn't it? It starts from 0, marks of 0. So when you do marks of 0, then 0th index will be getting. So loop will iterate again, and next time I will become 1, marks of 1, first one will get, marks of 2, 3, 4, 5. This repeats until less than 6. That means fifth one. Fifth index is the maximum index, right? So that's how it prints. Let's see. Okay, you see that this time it printed step by step. Now, my goal is to sum all the elements of the array. So you printed this one, right? If you are given an assignment to sum up all the elements which are present in array, how do you do that? So it's very simple, guys. So in that case, create one new variable and call var equals to sum, and you can comment out this sum equals to sum plus marks of I. That's all. In the first iteration, this will be 0, right? 0 plus marks of 0 what? 12. Some variable will be updated to 12 after first iteration. In the second iteration, again sum plus. So sum is updated to earlier 12, right? So that 12 plus marks of 1, which is 20. So 12 plus 20 will become 32, right? In the third iteration, sum value will become 32. So this 32 will be sum plus marks of third one, which is 40. Okay, it will become 72. and the new sum variable is 72. In the next iteration, 72 plus 35. Like this, it will sum each and every element in the array, and finally it gives you the sum. So try to print the sum at the end, and now you will see the complete addition of all the elements present in the array. So you should get this logic in mind of summing up the elements in the array. So that logic you will get only when you know if how to access each and every index of that array and having them like this in for loop and going till length, right? So with this concept you will get that idea. You see, total 258 is the output. That's the sum of all the elements present in the array. Okay, we'll continue with another interesting topics called reduce, filter, map. There are some array functions which will really come into handy when you are working with any JavaScript related applications. So I will talk them in the next lecture. Thank you. Welcome back. So this array exposes three powerful functions to reduce your code complexity. So now for example, you have done this coding to sum all the numbers in an array, right? You can achieve same thing with reduce also with a neat and simple style. Okay, so let me show you. Now this is your array, right, which hold all the values. So there is a method called reduce. This reduce method can be used to perform operation on all the elements of your array. So in this case we need to sum them. Let's see how to do that. Right. So this is the method, and this method take two arguments. So the first argument what it takes is sum. So I'm just trying to sum all the elements of the array using reduce method. Okay, just follow me, you will understand. So total marks. So this total marks is nothing but a total what you get finally after summing up. So this is the intermediate sum. Now, so for these two arguments, you will perform an operation called sum plus total marks, right? And the sum is your accumulator here. So when you say accumulator, this value will keep on changing for every iteration. Just like look at here. So this value is keep on changing for every iteration, right? Initially it is 0 and next you are adding some value and pushing into it, right? The sum value changes every time. So this reduce method takes first argument as accumulator. It can be anything which varies. It starts with a 0. So that should be your next argument, and that's all. So let me explain you how this works. So this reduce method, again just like any other method, will iterate through array just like how for does. So first of all, what does it do? It takes two arguments. Okay, sum is 0. Now total marks. So this total marks is nothing but the individual digit what you get from your array. Could be we can give like this mark instead of total mark. Let me say mark so that you will not get confused. So basically you created two variables. First mark what you get from your output when you iterate is 12, right? 12 will be gone here. 12 plus 0. Output is 12. So the accumulator gets stored new variable just like this. So marks of I we are doing, right, to get each and every element, that will be automatically done with the help of this variable. So reduce method on every iteration will pull each and every value from an array and it will place that value in this mark variable for every iteration. Okay, and you have an accumulator which sums up for the values what you are taking. The same logic without using for loop you can just achieve like this. So here we initialized it with a 0. So accumulator initialization should be done at the last as a second argument. Okay, and the real code logic what you want to perform should be done here. So basically this is an anonymous function which takes two arguments, and that function does this logic. Okay, that's technically that's what happening here, and the output what you get back is the total sum of what you see here. Okay, so you can just select, create a new variable called total, because that returns total, console.log total, and if you see the output, it should still be the same. You see that 258. So from here you can just conclude that whenever there is a situation that you want to perform any sum or multiplication, then just use the reduce method and sum or multiplication, that logic write in the function logic, and you will have accumulator like this. For every iteration that value get updated, that's the first argument. And when you want to multiply each and every element of your array, then you have to iterate over it, right? Like marks of I, that work automatically done by reduce, and it will get that value and store it in a variable called mark, or anything, you can put anything here. Okay, so this is how you can achieve reduce. So initially it looks little tricky, but if you try to understand and grasp this concept, then many logics you will be simply end up by writing like this. Now next, now I'll create one fresh array. Let's create scores, call them as scores, and I would say 12, 13, 14, 16. We just have 4 elements. Now my goal is to print the elements of array which are even numbers. Okay, I just want to print only even numbers from this array. So how can I get only even? So one thing what I have in my mind is you have to iterate over each and every element. So you have to write code like this. So for let I equals to 0, I less than scores dot length, I plus plus, and here, so that will iterate every iteration scores of I. So on every iteration it picks one element, right? So that's what we are doing. So in the first iteration 12 will be picked. So percentile 2, to tell even number or not, remainder should be 0 when you divide by 2. That's the even number logic. It should be 0. Then you can say that's the even number. So you can write an if condition to tell if the value whatever you pick from an array, if that is a multiple by 2 and if it gives you 0 remainder, then it's an even. Then you can create an empty array and then push all even numbers to that array, because the overall goal here is to create a new array with even numbers of scores array. So basically your new array should be like this: 12, 14, 16, because these are even numbers and you should skip 13. So you should create an array like this. So now you are iterating through each and every array. The 12 will be checked here. Yes, it will go inside. So you should add this to new array. So let's create new array, even scores. So I'll start with a blank because we don't have any value. But now you know, right? If you want to push new value into this array, we already saw that there is a method called push which will add a new element, right? So dot push, what you should push? You should push the element from the score array. So when 12 comes here, 12 checks this logic. Yes, it's even. It will go inside and that 12 will be pushed into new array. And next iteration 13 will come. 13 is not even, so it will skip this if condition as it is not true, and that will not get pushed. And next 14, 16 will be pushed. So once you are out of this outer for loop, and if you try to print now your even scores array, you should see the output of only even numbers. You see this 12, 14, 16. So this is one way of doing. But now let me show you the simple way of handling it instead of writing these many lines of code. Okay, so your goal is to print even numbers, right? So what is your original array? This is your original array. The same logic now, see how I am doing with the help of filter method. Scores, because ultimately what you are doing here, you are doing a filter with this condition. Okay, you are filtering your elements with even number condition. So I'm using a method like this called filter. So in every iteration, one element will be retrieved, right? So that element I will store here. So basically this filter will iterate, and in the first iteration 12 will be retrieved. So 12 will get stored here. I created a new variable so that that variable stores a value of the array on every iteration. And for this value, I am going to check if that value percentile 2 equals to 0. This is my condition. If this matches, this filter will remember it. Okay, so that's all. Now again 13 will come here. 13 divided by 2, no, 14, 16, all three condition matches. So what does filter do? It filters with this condition, and whatever it matches, all these by default it will push into one new array and it gives to you back. Okay, so let new filter even scores. So this is my new array, that's all. And when you try to print it, and this will have the same value of what you had here. Okay, so to achieve this logic of pushing all the even elements to an array, you did this for loop, if condition, and new array pushes, everything you did. Instead, just use filter. Okay, if you have something a condition, the filter will just filter with this condition, and whatever elements are conditionally satisfied with this filter, but inbuilt in the backend, all those elements it will just push into new array, and that array you can carefully collect by returning that into one variable, and that's all. Now run this again. You see that this is the new one. This is the one what you got from this condition, and this is the new one what you got from this method. Okay, so this is how you can work with filters smartly by avoiding this, and this is how you can work with reduce smartly avoiding this code. So when to use reduce, when to use filter. So if you have any concept where you want to iterate and update values, like accumulating like this, so here the sum is accumulating with new value every time you iterate. If you have such scenarios, then use reduce method. But if you have a scenario where you want to filter your array based upon some conditions like even numbers or odd numbers, then use filter method and give that condition here. Right? Good. So there is another method array function called map, which I will talk in the next lecture. Thank you. Okay. So now what is the map array function? So map function will modify each and every value of array to new value. So basically in real world, when do we use mapping? Mapping is all about mapping from one value to new value. Okay, so in our case, if you have a requirement that once you filter all your numbers with even, so if you want to multiply all your even numbers with 3, let's assume that that is your requirement. So create new array with even number of scores and multiply each value with 3. So this is your output you got after you perform array on filter, right? So your next output should be like this, because after you get it, they were asking to multiply each value with 3 on the new array what you got with even numbers. So 12 3 is 36 and 14 3 is 52, I guess. I'm sorry, this program is testing my skills. And 16 3 is 48, right? So this should be your new array. So that means from this value we are mapping to new value. Okay, and from this value you are mapping to new value. Yes, if this is the case, you can do that again by writing this program, and by iterating each and every element you will multiply by 3 and you will push it to the new array, right? You know how to do that. So you can do it again in one step using map method. Okay, so this is your another array, right? New array with even scores. On this array you have to perform a map. And again, for every score, so this iterates, and every element it pulls and it will store in this variable, right? So earlier you had this condition, you are trying to print an even number. Here there is no condition. For every element it will do some operation. Okay, it will not filter. So for every element it will do some operation and give you the new element. So here for this element you have to simply multiply with 3. That's all. Okay, and you are done. So what does it do? It iterates and it picks up each and every element, it multiplies and give you the new element, and also it stores all the new elements what it got into a new array. So it creates like this for you. Okay, inbuilt it will take care of holding all the values when it's iterating, and finally once operation iteration is done, it will give you a mapped array. Let's call this as a mapped array, and this variable now will have values like this. See how simple it is by working on these array functions. Okay, let's run this program. You see that 36, 42. Okay, my mathematical skills are very bad. 14 threes is 42. Okay, and 48. So this is how you can see it in the output, right? So observe the difference between this and this. This one will return the array only which matches this condition, but map, it's not like that. For every element it maps to a new code and sends, but it will not stop anything to send. By default it forced to perform operation for each and every element of your array, but whereas filter will perform the operation only when condition satisfied. That's why this got a name as a filter, and this is like mapping from the one value to new value. And reduce is like summing up, or tying up all the values together. Now let's do one thing, guys. You got these new values, right? And let's increase our acceptance criteria here. So create new array with even number of scores and multiply each value by with 3 and sum them. Okay, this is your final test. So that means you got new values and you should now sum them. 36 plus 42 plus 48. This is how you want to do. And your new array after multiplying is here, right? It's easy, guys. We did that earlier. So if someone asks you to sum up the array numbers, so dot reduce, and inside the function will take 2 arguments. One is accumulator, you can create anything, and the next one, on every iteration it pulls up the value, right? Let's call it as a val. You can give any names, and then this function code is that sum plus val, and the sum initialized to 0. Okay, so sum will be initialized to 0, and the first iteration 36 will be picked, 36 plus 0, and it remembers the sum, and 36 plus 42 will be your new sum. In the next iteration 48 will be retrieved and it adds 48. Finally it sums up all the 3 and it will give you the number back. So that number you can store total val, and when you try to print it gives you the total. Let's see. Perfect. You see that output is 126. That's the correct one. So this is how you can filter, map and reduce. So we have written multiple lines of code, right? Instead I can do simple chaining here without writing these many lines. Okay. So let me create a new array again. Where is that? This is var scores. Let me take 1 scores 1. This is my new array. So I am repeating the same code, but let's change this time. Observe carefully. So you have filtered here, right? What's that filter will return? This will return a new array. On this new array you are applying map. That means you are storing this into an array. On that variable only you are applying map. Then why to waste this variable? You can directly chain here. Okay, so this returns a new array with even numbers, right? On this array, let's apply map. Sorry, map. Like this, you can chain everything. Okay, dot a map, and that will go and multiply all these values by 3, and again you are storing a new array into mapped array. On that mapped array you are summing up. Again, why to use this variable? Once you get a new array after you map it, then go ahead and sum it, reduce, and just call this method. And this method finally returns you the value, right? Sum. Some value, and that's it. We just wrote them in one single line. Okay, you can chain like this. So if you got a program to solve like this, create an array with even numbers of scores from your original array and multiply every value with 3 and sum them. I'm just giving you this example. In your case it could be anything. So all that you can bring down them into one step without writing any for loop or if conditions, just relying on these array functions. I chained up everything, it filtered, mapped and summed up and just gave me everything in one single line. Okay, so now go ahead and print it. It should still get you the same value. Don't worry, when we are dealing the automation scenarios, I will show up this again with real-time examples in your UI automation. You see, you again got 126. This is what you got from here, and this is what you got with this chaining. Okay, so that's about filter, map and reduce, and we'll do some more exercises on this when we are into actual automation course curriculum. All right. So now let us see how can we perform sorting on any array. So there are two type of sorts: sorting an array which have strings and sorting an array which have numbers. So there are different logics for these two both. So let's start with a string array first, where, or you can use let, it's up to you what keyword you use, because by now you can know what exactly they are, how they are different. So let's say banana, mango. So these are the some fruit names you have. So now at this time they are not in the sorted order. So if the string array is not in sorted order and if you want to sort them, there's very simple method available in JavaScript. What all you need to do is just to select that sort method. So this method will just go ahead and sort your array. Okay, and now when you print it, you will see this array gets sorted. You need not remember any logic if you are trying to sort an array which have strings, and make sure you either give all capital letters or all small letters. Right, everything is in small letter now here, and let me run this. You see that everything got sorted, and now you can see this in the correct order. So this is the original order and this is sorted order, and you just used and applied sort method, that's all, and it worked. So this is straightforward if you have an array which have strings. But what if you have numbers? This sort method can only sort the strings. So if you try to provide numbers, it will treat that number as a string and it will try to sort in that way. So obviously you will get some weird results. Okay, so let's take one array again. Let's 12, 13, 19, 16 and 14. So this is not sorted array of integers. So scores one dot sort, and then just go ahead and print after it got sorted. Right, 12, 13, 14, 16, 19. Okay, it looks like it's sorted, but I will show that how it will fail. So if you try to give something like this 0, 0, 3, and let's see what happens now. You see, it broke. 12, 14, 16, 19 and 3 is coming on the last. So this is not a reliable method which takes care of it. But ideally 003 is nothing but 3. It should get that in the beginning, right? So for that, you have to apply custom logic. So this sort method can accept custom logic. Let me show you. If you don't provide any custom logic, then by default it will do the sort as per the default logic of strings, but you can go ahead and give custom logic like this. So my custom logic here is that I will try to take two values, any two values, right? The gap between 12 minus 3 is a 9, but if you take the gap between 3 comma 19, it's again more. So what is the less gap you can see here? This 3 and 12 have less gap than any other number here. So I will write a logic in this way. Again, just like how we have done all these filter methods, let me write anonymous function. So one way is to write like this: function a comma b, and okay, so this function will take arguments return a minus b. So this is one way of writing the logic. The same method you can also describe like this, just like I have explained earlier on building anonymous function. So you can remove this function keyword and you can use a fat pipe operator, and you can get rid of this curly braces, and also you can get rid of this return. Okay, so this is like what we have done for filter, map and reduce methods. So this is your logic. So the minimum difference, whatever it find, that will push to the beginning. So that minimum difference you will get only from 12 comma 3. So 3 comma 19 difference is lot, it's a 16. 3 comma 12 difference is just a 9, and even this. So that way 3 will come on the first with a minimum gap, and next it will. So if you know the bubble sort, it's basically doing the bubble sort algorithm on getting the numbers. So this is the recursive function which will be applied to each and every method. So once this is sorted, and what is the next smallest difference once 3 is sorted? 12 and 14 is the next smallest difference, right? 12 comma 16 is 4, 12 comma 19 is 5. So 12 comma 14 is the small difference. So that comes first, 12, 14. And then 14 comma 16 is a small difference, then 14 comma 19. So this function recursively tests for each and every element with all the combinations, and whenever the smallest value is found, it pushes to the beginning. That's how the sort happens. So once you sort like this with this logic, now you try to print your output, and this time it will give you the sorted one. I'll comment this. You see, it's correctly sorted down. So the logic what we are using here is the bubble sort in a recursive manner. So instead of creating two for loops and writing that logic, you can simply write like this, which will help you to sort your numbers in any array, right? But this is how originally you write, as this is anonymous function which do not have any function name. So because you really need not require any function name, it takes two arguments and it does the job. If that is the case, you can get rid of this function, get rid of this braces, return, and you can simply write like this, just like how you have done for filter and map and reduce. Okay, and this is how you sort if it's an integer. And if you want to reverse the sort order, then you can just say like this, fruits dot reverse. This will simply print all your values of array in descending order. Okay, so let me do one thing. So I'll write console.log here only. So first of all, you will get in the ascending order, and when you want to try it in descending, give like this, and this will simply give you in the reverse order. You see, it started with ascending, descending, and if you want to ascend or descend your numbers, write the custom logic like this. And if you want to print them in descending order, then reverse it. Instead of a minus b, do b minus a, and that's all. So it will just give you all the numbers in the reverse order. Okay, I hope now you understood how to sort even it's an integer or string with these methods. Welcome guys, right? So let's talk about functions in this lecture. I'm going to show what are the functions and how we declare functions and what are their usage in JavaScript, right? So first of all, a block of code can be executed together by wrapping them in a module called function. Let's say you have some multiple lines of code which does for some purpose, or at least a single line of code as well. So if you want to wrap that code in a block and give nice name to it, so that's where functions will come into picture. So let me explain you. Let's say I want to add two numbers, simple one, right? So you can create one function for that which can add two numbers. So the keyword function has to be written if you want to create a new function, and the name of the function, that is the next keyword. So you should write the name and parameters. If that function need any parameters, you need to pass inside that. Okay, so basically I want to add multiple numbers every time, so I need not write the code every time like 2 plus 3, 4 plus 3 or 5 plus 3. So I will wrap that logic inside this function method, and I will just call this method with different parameters. Let me show you. So this is how you declare a function in JavaScript with this syntax, and this is the name of the function. So let's say you are sending two parameters which you want to add, and then here you perform a plus b. Yes, your goal is done. Okay, so you have summed up two numbers. So a plus b, that will sum up two values. Now if you want to execute this function, you need to call that function first. So add, right? And this expects two arguments, right? 2, 3, and that's it. So if you say like this, and when you run this program at runtime, JavaScript will not execute anything here. So first it will come to this function call. You are asking here to execute this add function, and then it will go back and search for add function, and then only it will take these two parameters inside this and it will sum them and it will give you the output. Okay, so here once you sum 2 plus 3, you should get the output back, right? So what you can do, you can say return. So return will send the return back. Okay, it will send the result back to the user. So I'm calling this method now, and this method will go and execute this function because you are asking to execute, and it returns back me the sum of these two numbers which you can catch in one variable. Okay, like this, and you can print it. That's it. So you have written one simple add function with JavaScript syntax, and you called that function, and the result you stored in a variable, and now you are trying to print that variable. Okay, let's see. Simple. 2 plus 3, it's a 5. So here is one function which take arguments, and there is another way also you can write a function in JavaScript. So those functions are called anonymous functions. So that means these functions do not have name, and these are nothing but do not have name, and we call them as anonymous function. These are like more of like function expressions, right? So what I can do now, again I will declare this keyword to tell that we are executing function, and then I will pass two more arguments, c comma d, right? And that returns c plus d. So instead of creating one function with one name and calling that function, storing that variable, this is how we are doing, right? So directly what I can do, I can store like this, sum of, I'm just creating one variable, that's all, sum of integers. So we already declared sum, right? So how does this look? Don't you think it's very simple than this? Both are doing same, but here you created a separate function and then you're calling it and storing. Instead, you start from here. Let sum of integers equals to, right, some variable. In this variable, directly as a value, you are giving this function details. Okay, instead of calling it, the function creation itself, you are passing as a value. So if you directly pass like with this add, then it will throw an error because this function has a name. So you can directly assign as a value to your variable only when that value is anonymous function. That means function without name. Here it's we don't have any name, right? So anonymous functions only can be assigned to variables, right? So this looks more cleaner and simple than this. So there are two ways of declaring the function. So I just want to show you that, and you can minimize the code much more here. Let me paste it in another one. Sum of numbers. I'm just changing the variable name here because using let you cannot redeclare, right? If you use var here, that's fine. You can reuse it a number of times. So another shortcut is that if you are using anonymous function, then you can get rid of this keyword called function. Instead, you can have one fat pipe, okay, equals to and less than symbol. If we give this, we call this as a fat pipe, and this represents anonymous function. Okay, and here you can get rid of these values as well. Let me show. So you can remove curly braces as well, making your syntax much simpler. You can remove return keyword as well. All these are not required, guys. So what all you need is the core logic, right? And you can get rid of function, curly braces, return, and just use fat pipe operator, so that at runtime JavaScript will take care of converting this fat pipe to this syntax and it will execute. This looks much simpler. So this is what we are trying to achieve, and we finally came to this level with one line of code. Good, both does the same. Now if you want to print it, try to just print the sum of number. You will get the same output of whatever you passed, but you are getting one question here. So where are the values I am sending? So here you created a function, nice. Then when you are calling that function, you are sending the values 2 comma 3. So this 2 3 went here, 2 plus 3 5 became, right? Now here when you print like this, you are not sending any values, right? Where are you sending values? Okay, so let's see. So sum of numbers is your variable, right? In this variable only you can send like this 2 comma 3. Okay, so this is your function name technically. Now instead of creating separate function, you assign it to variable, and these 2 comma 3 will go and sit in this c comma d and applies this logic 2 plus 3 5, and it returns back the value into your output. Okay, so if you try to console log this, this should give you the output. Okay, let's see. You see that 5 is the one you got from the last line, and this is what you did traditionally. So try to appreciate the difference here. So this with the function name, this is anonymous function, and you drill down more to reduce anonymous function by writing fat pipe shorthand operator. And here if you want to send arguments in the variable itself, you need to send these two values. That's all. So these are the different ways you can declare functions and play around it. Okay, thank you. Until last lecture, we have seen some differences between var, let and const keywords. So in this lecture, I will show the one more difference, which is the major one. And this difference is related to the scope where they can be declared and from where they can be accessed. Okay, so let's talk about var keyword first. So until ES5, there is no let or const keywords. There is only one keyword called var. So from ES6, those two keywords are also available, and people suggest to use them instead of var. but still there are some thin line of differences between all these three. Okay, so we have seen some in the last lectures. So another one is that the scope of this var keyword is global if it is declared in the global level, or the scope of var is in function only if it is declared in function level. So that means if you declare the var keyword inside here, then you cannot access it outside. Now let's see, var greet equals to morning. So this is how I want to greet. So if I try to print this greet here, console.log greet, what does this do? This will throw an error, because when you define var keyword in function level, the scope will die in this function only. So when you come out of that and try to execute, then it will kick you with an error. Okay, you can see that greet is not defined. So have something on global level and that will fix your issue. Var greet equals to, let's call it as evening, and now when you try again, it prints. So basically this greet is accessed in global level but not in the function. Okay, so if you carefully observe, it's not in the block scope, it is in the function scope. Please underline this. So that means, so let's say there is another if condition you want to write, if 1 equals to 1, of course it is a true, so that's why I am writing this, so that it will go inside this if block. Okay, so here if I declare greet again afternoon, and now what should be the output? So people think that output will still be evening because this greet is confined to this block only. No, again I am repeating, var keyword scope is in either global level or function level. So that means if you don't write that in function level, then that means it is applied in global, right? So you declared greet here, but is this greet inside the function? No. So that means this is a global. So when you print this, it will start with evening, but you are replacing this with afternoon. Let's see. You see that? So this is what confused people a lot, because they assume that they are writing something in the block and the scope lies inside it, but when they come out of this block, but still the block assigned value is given outside, which is not true for any other programming language. So that's why to overcome this problem, let was introduced as another keyword. So let scope will be either in global level if you declare it in global, or it is in the block level. When you say block level, it will be within this braces. Okay, so if it is declared within this braces, then scope will be only inside this. Now look at here. So this greet keyword, if you change to let like this, what happens now? Yeah, if it is var, then it replaces, though it is inside the block. But using let, your output will still be evening only. It will not be afternoon. Let's see. You see why it is evening? Because here the let keyword scope is in block level. So this greet will not be visible outside of this block. Okay, and here also you can have another let, and this scope is also inside this. So this greet will not be visible outside of this block. The only thing visible to outside and accessible here in line number 19th is fourth one, which is evening in the let keyword. But when you change var, this is visible outside also, because this is not in the function. Var only to function, but let is in block level. So that is why, to avoid confusion and to make consistency, people try to use as much possible a let keyword when they are using ES6 after ES6 engine. So that is why this is introduced, and this is one of the major difference. So with these differences, we have total 3 differences we identified. One is a scope level, and whereas another one is let cannot be redeclared, but whereas var can be redeclared. That is one more important thing which we already saw with good number of examples. And third one is reinitialization. Yes, let and var can both be reinitialized. When I say reinitialized, so you gave let greet equals to evening, right? You can just go ahead and say greet equals to night. You can reinitialize. Both var and let can be reinitialized, but there is another keyword called const, which is almost same as let, with only difference that this cannot be reinitialized. Okay, and it take all the features of let, because the name itself says it's a constant. So once you assign it, you cannot go and reinitialize it. Okay, so if I run this now, it will still work. See, it prints night because these two are global variables. So you updated value to night and it is visible to everywhere and it can be accessed. But if you try to change this to const, then what happens? It will break because you are trying to reinitialize again. You see that? It complains saying that assignment to constant variable. Okay, but if you comment out this, it will just behave like it is as let. You see, that's the only difference. If you don't reinitialize, it will be normal as let keyword. So only thing is these cannot be altered once it is assigned value. So if you are working with automation code, all the locators you cannot alter, right? Once you take XPath or CSS. So we go with const keyword when you take a locator into any variable. Alright guys, so that's about scope level differences between var, let and const. Hope this helped and you also understood how these are accessed inside function or inside block. Good. So with this we are concluding the discussion on these keywords. We'll continue with one more topic in the next lecture. Thank you. Alright, so let's talk about strings and its methods in JavaScript. So to declare a string, as we don't specifically give any data type, you can still write this way, like let day equals to Tuesday. I'm intentionally giving this space here, which I will address later. Right, so day is string here. So unlike any other programming language, we specially don't say that this is a string. By default, JavaScript can take care of it by reading the nature of its value. So you can write a string in a single quote or in a double quote, doesn't matter. So most of the string operations are just like array operations. Okay, so now if you want to get the length of the string, so this is the string, right? So if you want to get the length, so that means each character is treated as one index. So in array you have a collection of elements. So in the string you have collection of characters. So now if you want to get the string length, just like array, how would you do? Same thing here, day dot length. This will give you the length of the string. So that means how many characters you have inside that string. Okay, we'll see how we are getting that. There are total 8 characters here. You can read it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and the space also 1 character. So that means total 8 is the length of the string. Now if you want to get substring out of it, so to get a substring, just like how we have done in array in the earlier lecture, same thing, that you have to use a method called slice. Date dot on the main string you can apply slice and you can give the start to end. Okay, so let's say you want to take the first 4 characters, then you can say 0, 5, I guess. Yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 4. Then Tues will be retrieved. My goal is to retrieve these 4 characters. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and that's how you can get it. Let subday. So the output of this should be your substring. Okay, you can break the string and convert that into substring with the slice method. Okay, so what next? So if you want to access any character in the string, Again, same way, take the string of the index. Let's say you want to access the second character, then say day of 1, because index always starts with 0th index, 0th value. So if you give this, this should give you the output of u, right? So let me run these and see if they are correct. 8 Tues and u, good. Okay, so now you want to break this string, or you can say you want to split this string into two different strings, so that Tues should go into one string and the day should come into the another string variable. So if you want to split like this, so you can, let's say this is what you need, Tue and day. Okay, so if that is the case, that means this is your breakpoint, right? You have to split based upon these character, so that left to these characters will fall into one string and the right of yes will fall into the another string. So you are splitting it basically. So you can split your string with the day dot split, and based upon what character? Yes. So that means it splits and give you two strings. So when two strings are retrieved, what does JavaScript do? JavaScript inbuilt puts them into an array, because only array can hold multiple variable values, right? So split day. So now this is an array. Okay. Now from this array, if you want to get day, so in 0th index, this string will get stored. In the first index, this string will get stored. So to access the second split string, you can say split day of 1. Okay. So this should give me the output of day. Let's see. You see that? Day. But if you carefully observe, there is one space here. Okay. So right now here you won't see, because everything is space after that day. But if you want to trim that space, there is a method called trim, which trims left and right white spaces. Okay, so this is your string which got day, right? On this itself, you can use trim. And this remove if there are any leading and trailing white spaces in your string. Yes, we have one white space. Okay, so let me do one thing. The split day of 1 dot length. So let's take the length. After you trim, one white space will be gone, right? Okay, so after you trim, take the length again. The length should reduce by one number now, after you successfully trim it. You see that? It's 4 initially, but after you trim, the white space is gone and it's a 3. What is that 3 characters? It's nothing but day. And if you want to get the first trimmed string, then split day of 0 you can tell. So that way that string will be retrieved. Okay, so this is how you can work on trim method, split, length and slice. And the next one, let's say sometimes if you want to access any values from your browsers using Selenium or WebDriver IO or Cypress, by default the values will be retrieved as strings. So let's say you got one date from your browser when you are automation. 23 is what you get it back, but that is retrieved as string. Okay, you got another date from your browser which is 27. So now your goal is to identify how much difference between the next date and current date. Okay, if this is your requirement, so this is how you got from your browser in string format. Okay, so if you try to find out the difference in this way, this will throw an error. Okay, because you cannot subtract strings, right? To subtract them, they should be in number format. Then only you can subtract. What can you do if you do like this? Okay, that will give you the weird output. So in this case, you have to convert your string to integer. So how can you do that? So for that, there is a method called parse int, which can convert your string to a number. You see that? A string to convert into a number. Okay. Right. So this way now you have successfully converted into numbers, and now you are trying to find the difference between two numbers, and now you should get the correct output of 4, which is right, 27 minus 23. Okay, so this is more important when you are working with automation testing. You will come across scenarios where you want to convert a string numbers into integer format so that you can perform some operations. And now this difference is nothing but an number format. So if you want to convert that back into string, again you can do same thing, diff dot to string. So this is a method which will convert back your integer to string. You see that? Returns a string representation of object. Okay. So I hope you will remember these two methods to vice versa conversion from number to string and string to number. So let's continue in the next lecture. Thank you. Welcome back. So how to concatenate two strings? So you have a day here which have a Tuesday with you, right? So let me create a new string out of it. Day. To concatenate and add new string, you can add plus operator, which will help you to concatenate. Is fun day. So this I will store into new variable saying new quote. So this day variable holds Tuesday, and I am concatenating this variable with a new string by using plus operator. So basically plus operator concatenates two different strings, and the concatenated one will get stored here, and in your output if you try to print new quote, then it will tell you that Tuesday is fun day. Okay, nice. So now you know how to perform and join them. Okay, now let's try one method called index of. So that method we already saw when we are discussing array methods. So if you want to know where exactly any character is present, now let's say Tuesday is fun day, right? This is my code. In this code I want to know where day is present. Okay, let's see. This is my new code. On this code dot index of. So give me the index where day starts. So that means it will take the first occurrence of D character. Okay. So I'll write it in val, and I will print that val and see what output it gives me. Okay, fourth. So that means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4th. Here where D starts. So it clearly told that this day starts at a 4th index. But here there is another day also. Okay. So what if I want this? In that case, you have to tell that your search mechanism should start from the 5th index. Then only it will start searching from A, and then it will find the next day so that it reports this index value. So I hope you now understood this second argument. This is optional. If you think that you don't want the first one, then you just need to give that, and you see the output is 14th because the D starts at fun day at 14th index. Okay, so instead of changing like this, okay, so this is my string, right? So I want to write a simple program that should tell how many times day occurrence have been occurred. So in our case, day has been occurred 2 times in this string, right? So can you write a program which just takes a string as an input and gives you output as a 2 based upon the character you pass. So here we are passing day to search. It should tell that there are 2 occurrences. Okay, let's see. It's simple, guys. So let's start with this string value again. Now if it could not find, then it will return -1. Okay, if day is not found in this entire string, then output will be -1. Okay, so let's have one while loop. While val is not equals to -1. So for the first time, it identifies the day. So it will give the index number. So if it could not find index, then only it will give -1. So when we are checking the validation, yes, it is not equal to -1. It goes inside. Then let's have one count variable. Let count equals to 0, and we will increment whenever our loop, our code goes inside this loop, right? So when you execute this, first time it will find D here, 4 not equals to -1 true, it will go inside and count plus plus. So count increments by 1, and now this variable value is 1. That means one time occurred. But still you should not stop here, right? You should still search once you found this D, right? So that means here val will have 4th, right? That is where D found. So here itself, let's write another step like this. Okay, here now I will add val plus 1, just like how I have done before, right? I am telling that as you already found at 4th index, now repeat the search from the 4th plus 1, 5th index. So search starts from A, and again loop continues. You know that while loop keep on running until it returns false, right? So when step number 28 executed, you will get value of 14. So loop continues again as 14 not equals to -1, count plus plus. So count now changed to 2, right? So for the second iteration, count increments to 2, and again it starts. So val value is 14, right? 14 plus 1, 15th. Now again count starts from A, last string. And then when it tries to find day again from the 15th index, it will not find. Okay, when it will not find, it will return -1. So loop started again, -1 not equals to -1, false. It exits, right? And now you carefully catch that count variable. And this will tell you how many times day occurred in your complete string. Okay, val has already declared. Where is this val? Did I declare anywhere on the top already? Oh yeah, here. So we can change it to value then. This will work. You see that exactly count of occurrences is 2. So if you want to increase the scope of this string, now you are checking the new code string, right? So if you want to add another character here, like is fun day and one more day like this, and now you run this code again, this should give me 3 this time, because there are total 3 occurrences, day, and in the original day variable also there is 1 day. Perfect, you see that 3. So that's how you can write a program to see number of occurrences of any word in the string using index of method and while loop, right? So this concludes our discussion on the strings and its methods. Hope this helps for you. Thank you. Hey, welcome back. So in this lecture, I will explain you what are JavaScript objects. So basically an object is collection of properties. Okay, so now what is properties? Now let's say you want to define a person object. So person will have first name, last name, and gender. So all these are the properties of that person. So you can define object like this. Let person equals to, this is a variable declaration, right? Curly braces. So inside this you can have the object of your properties. Okay, so this is the person object. So how you can define property? So let's say you have first name property, first name. Property can be defined in key value pairs. Okay, so key will always be string and value can be any data type. So in our case, value is also string. The first name will obviously be string.
let's say Tim, right? This is one property. You should define like this, key value. And next I want to have their last name, and it's Joe. So here the person is one property which is holding these two details, first name and last name. Okay, right. So if you want to access the last name of the person, you can just do like this, object dot, you see that automatically you are getting last name, and that's it. So this is how you can access. So if you think that any object hold multiple properties, so you can wrap up all these details in one single object, and you can just call that property with object dot property. That's all. So let's run this from our console, terminal, save this project, nodebase 6.js. You see that it printed the last name. So there is another way also to access the property. This is one way with the dot notation, and you can also access with an array kind of notations. So in array, if you assume that these two are index values in your array, how would you access them? Person of last name. Okay, assuming that this is at 0 index, this is at the first index, you will give person of 1, right? So here index is nothing but key here. Okay, so you can access like this also, and you will get the same result. Console.log person last name. Last name is not defined. Yes, it's because you have to tell that is it in strings. When you write this in array notation, it has to know what kind of data type it is. So put a colon, so that way it will treat it as string, because when you hover your mouse here, it's clearly telling that this property is string, right? So when you access through array notation, this is how you need to give. So this error will go away now. Let's see. Perfect, Joe and Joe. Good. So now you know how to access the properties values using dot notation and array like notation. Now I can also change the property at runtime like this. So if you think that you want to change the first name, then you can say person dot first name, and you can assign anything here. Tim Dane. So this is your new person name, first name. Okay, right. So if you assign this, and this will be automatically updated, and now when you try to print person dot first name, this should give you the updated name. So this way we can also update the properties by assigning the values at runtime. You see that Tim Dane is printing, but not Tim is getting printed. So that's how you can change the property values. At the same time, you can add new property also at runtime. So here you declare a person object. So let's say you want to add one more property of gender, then you can also do that by saying person dot gender equals to male, right? So if you assign like this, it does not exist, right? So here also you assign, if it is exist, then it will go and update that value. If it is does not exist, then this will create a property in this person object and will assign to that. Okay, so after you assign, if you try to print the property its object itself with console.log person, let's see if this property is added or not. Okay, you see that gender male. So this property is now successfully added to the object, right? And you can also delete any property if you need. So let's say you want to delete it back by adding it. After you add it, if you want to delete, just use the keyword called delete and person dot gender. It gets deleted. That's all. And when you try to print that object again, this time that this property should not exist. Okay, so this is like self-explanatory, right? You are able to understand, but this is very powerful, guys.
you can hold multiple values inside it and wrap it in one object and play around with those. Gone. Gender male is deleted because it no more exists. Okay, so in the next lecture, let's see how to check if property exists in the object and also how to iterate over all the properties of the object. Okay, thank you. All right, so you can also check if the property exists in the object. Okay, so sometimes you will try to add these properties and finally you will check if that exists, do this way, if not, do another way, right? When you are doing real coding, you will come across a situation where you need to check if property exists. So in that case, it's very simple, guys. So if you want to check if gender exists in this property, sorry, in that object, you can simply say gender, right? The property name will be in string if it is in object name, which is person. That's all. So this statement will tell if this property is present in this object. If it is present, then it will return true. If not, it will return false. Very simple, right? Just you have to use this in keyword and tell if property exists in object. You see, false, because we just deleted it. So that's why it do not exist. Now, if you want to print the values of all the properties, so you can do that by writing one simple for loop. So here in this case, if you want to print this Tim, Joe, and if you add any other property, if you want to print that too, you can iterate over the properties of this object using for loop. Let me show you that. So you can write enhanced for loop here for let key again in. So this is a key, right? How did we check? Key in object. What is your object here? My object here is a person. That's it. So this loop iterates every time. In the first iteration, it picks the first key, right? In the second iteration, it picks second key. It will continue until all the keys in this object is done, right? So in the first iteration, we just discussed that this will be retrieved, right? Now how you want to print the value? So your goal is to print all the values of this object. So it's very simple. So person, right, of key. That's all. So in the first time, first name will come, person of first name, just like this. This will print Tim. Again loop iterates, and the next time in this key, last name will come, and inside the loop we are doing person of last name, like this, and Joe will get printed. So this is what the concept of iterating through every property in your person object. You can just write one single for loop like this and you can make them printed. You see that Tim, Dane and Joe are printed in the output. It's printing Tim, Dane because we updated again object at a runtime. So this is one of the common interview question. People will just ask you to print all the values of the JavaScript object, right? So you can just give this example and that will suffice. Next, not only strings or numbers. You can just go ahead and add age 24. Okay, so it's not just string, you can add number also as a property. And not only number, you can also add methods. Okay, so it's just not restricted to one single digit value. Now let me show you something. So here we have three properties, right? And the next one, I can say full name is my property, and this full name property, basically I have to concatenate first name and last name. Okay, so that's what I want to do. So I have to perform some operation and print them in the output. So if you have a requirement of having bunch of lines of code, This property also takes function. So you can declare anonymous function like this, and you can go ahead and write all your code what you want. Okay, so in the last lecture we have already discussed what is anonymous function, because that function do not have any name. So overall point here is that it's not just values or strings. You can also make functions as value for your property key value. Okay, so now my goal is to concatenate first name and last name. So to access your own object property, you can access it with this keyword, this dot first name, concatenation, this dot last name. So basically I'm concatenating two strings. You can't access your own property directly with first name. You have to do with this. This represents current object. You see this? The person is also represents this. This dot first name concatenated with this dot last name. Okay. So you can print this the output also. Right? Good. So now our person object have a function as an input for a property called full name. Okay, so I will try to print this. So in our output, the first console.log, I would say person dot full name. Right? I'm accessing the property of the object like this. This should print me the full name by computing this expression. Let's see. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. You see, what is it printing? It's not printing the exact one what we are expecting. Why? So there is some differentiation in calling the properties. If they are just numbers or string, you can call with a property, but if it is a function, you have to clearly give brackets like this. Then only JavaScript will know that this is a function input and it will try to execute that. If you don't give this, then it will tell you simply that this is a function, but it will not compute and execute the code which is present in the function, right? So you have to mention this. Okay, so let me run this again and scroll up. At this time you got a first name and last name concatenated, Tim Joe, right? You can see that. So that's the magic of this object. It holds functions as well. So only thing what you have to remember here is that when you are calling an property name which is a function input, then make sure you give this brackets. If it's just a number, you need not give that. Alright guys, so that's pretty much about objects and how we manipulate everything in the object in form of properties. So this pretty explanation will help you to handle any object related concepts in JavaScript. So with this knowledge, let's move to the classes in JavaScript in next lecture. Thank you. Welcome back. So in the last lecture, we have successfully completed learning about JavaScript objects, and now let's focus on classes, which is the object oriented principle in JavaScript. So these classes are introduced only from ES6 engine. Okay, so until then, if you want to store details of any object, like let's say here in the person, so we wrap everything in one object which holds the properties of that person and the methods what you want to define here we represent as a function, right? So everything will be wrapped in an object. So from ES6 engine, you can also represent your entity in form of class. Okay, so let me explain you that very quick. It should be easy, guys. 67.js. So the same person object, if you want to represent as a class, so you have to start with a class keyword, class, and the person, which is a class name, right? So basically person is our entity which holds all the details. Now if you want to define the properties for this class. Earlier we gave like this, right? And now let's say you want to write age equals to 25. You can declare like this, okay? But if you want to access the property of any class, you have to create object of that class, and you can access again with object dot property. Let me explain you. So how to create object for a class? You can do that with the help of new operator, new person, like this, and you can give the name of the object, right? So that should be done outside of your class block, okay? So you created object of this class, and now you can access this age property by calling person dot age. This is how you can access, if you want to access the properties of any class, okay? So let me run this. What is this? Node basic 7.js. You see, it printed 25. So this property can also be represented as a getter method, okay? So these class have given some best practices to follow. So this is one way to define a property, but sometimes this property may hold multiple lines of code also, right? Okay, just like how we have done here. So if that is your requirement, you can also create property like this using getter method, okay? So get, let's say I want to define a location property. I can also tell like this, get location written Canada. Okay, so one way of defining this property is you can give like this, location equals to Canada. This is one way. You can also define this property in the help of getter methods. So when you put get before the method name, then that is treated as a property. Okay, so this way you can have multiple lines of code and inject that into your property. Okay, and this is highly suggestible. And when we are doing automation framework in later lectures, all your page objects we will create as a properties, and we use getter methods to access them, right? So now you can still access this location with the same object what you created for that class dot location. Okay, you need not give like this, right? Because when you put get, that means it's just a property and it's not a method. So you can still give like this only. So these are the two different ways you can define properties in class, and this is highly suggestible to write as a getter method. You see, it's printing Canada. Similarly, you can have one constructor to your class. What is constructor? So constructor is a method which executes, let me write here, constructor is a method which executes by default when you create object of the class. So here you created object of the class, right? So if you have any constructor in place, when you create this object, that constructor will get executed. So how to create that constructor method? So constructor is a keyword. So you can initialize any values here. Now in the last lecture we want first name and last name. So we initialize like this, and age also we have given. You can declare them as your properties as well, but if you want to have new first name, new last name for every object, okay, so let me explain you. At this point you might not understand it very clearly, but once this class concept is done, you will get clear picture. So these are called instance variables. So if you define here, these are like class variables or properties which do not change based upon object you change. But when you declare any properties in constructor, so these are like instance variables. So let's see what are instance variables. Now, so you first name and last name, basically I want to send from here. So basically at runtime I have to decide what is my first name and what is my last name. So when I create object of a class, I will give these two arguments in the class creation, object creation. So these two arguments, what happens when the object is created, this constructor will call, right? Will be called by default. So this value will go and sit in first name and this value will go and sit in last name, right? Because you called an and created an object which is parameterized. So these two values are now stored here. But from here, these should be accessible across your class. That's your goal. But when these details are coming into this method, that means the scope of these values are inside this method only. So to get this scope to outside, let's create one new property for this class. This dot a first name. Okay, so this is different and this is different. This belongs to current class. This represents current class object. So in current class object, I am creating one property. This is accessible to entire class, and in this property I am carefully sending this value. So this way this will get activated and can be used across your class. Okay, you cannot use this directly. So you are sending Tim from here, it catches here. You cannot blindly use this everywhere because scope of this is inside this only. So that's why we brought another variable of this class which scope is the entire class when you do this dot. So for that we will assign our Tim, so you can access this Tim anywhere. So like this a class will get access. So this dot last name equals to last name, right? Okay, so now these two variables are activated, right? And if you want to print or create any method, let's say I want to create one method full name. See, this method is nothing but the one which we created earlier. Okay, so here I want to concatenate the first name and last name. So this dot first name concatenation, this dot last name, console dot log, right? So in class we call these are methods. Don't confuse between methods and property getters. If you see get keyword here, that means we call them as a properties, right? If you have a method like this without any get or any other, that means it's a method. Now to access this full name method, you have to say person dot full name and brackets, because this is not a property, this is a method. Okay, so earlier also when you create an object of this person, for any methods you created like you used this brackets, right? Similarly here also we are not using for the location because this is just a property, but we are representing in getter method, that's all. Okay, console.log. So I want to print full name of the person, but this class do not hold any details of that person, first name or last name. So when you create an object of this class, at that time we are sending this first name and last name at runtime to the constructor, because this constructor will be default called when you create object. In that way these two variables are activated, and these two are activating another first name and last name of this class properties. So as this is accessible everywhere, here also it gets activated, and then when you call person dot full name, this will have real values and real output will be seen in the output. Okay, so that is the difference. So let me run this. Okay, you see Tim Joseph is printed in your output. Okay, so here one thing you need to understand, that this method is depend upon the object creation, like what parameters you are sending while creating an object. Okay, so first name and last name varies if you use different object. Let's say I want to use and create another object called person1, and here details are like Chris Jones. Okay, this is new first name, new last name. And when you try to again print the full name of that person, this time it has to print Tim Joseph and also Chris Jones. So that means same method, output is different because you have used different values. So the first name and last name depend upon the object. Object is nothing but instance. We also call object as an instance of the class. So that's why as these values are changing based upon the instance what you create, we call them as a instance variables or instance properties. But no matter what object you create, this age will not change because you are not sending this value at runtime with object creation, isn't it? So only first name and last name are sent. Now if you want to print age, no matter you create person or person 1, when you call this person 1 dot age, it will still call 25. So that means this is a class property but not instance property. So all the instance properties, or we call instance variables, are defined inside constructor. Okay, right. So if you see this in a clear picture, you know what is constructor, and these are methods you can write in class, and these are properties, class properties, getters. Same information earlier we have in the person object also, but here we hard coded the values in the first name and last name. But by using class, you have a flexible that you can reuse same entity for different persons, isn't it? So but here this object is restricted to only Tim Joe, isn't it? So these are the details of one person. But if you convert that object as a class like this with ES6 engine, so this class representation is a dynamic so that you can create n number of objects with n number of names. So for all those persons, this could be one common entity, right? So if you see here, same thing we defined in constructor, age also we defined, full name also we have declared as a methods, right? That's the thin line of difference and why people choose class. And however, it is available only from ES6 engine, so that one common prototype we can use for a number of persons. Okay, let's continue our discussion in the next lecture. Thank you. All right, so you can also import this class into any other file, and you can call these class methods from that file also. Okay, now for example, this is the class up to here. So you created object of that class and call these methods, right? So let's say you are in another file. Let's go back to this basics5.js file. So if you want to call that class into this file, so let's say you want to access this full name method somewhere here. You can still do that with very simple manner. So what all you need to do is to first export this class and make this class visible to public so that anyone can import it. Okay, simple logic. So how can you export this class? You can directly export your class itself by placing here module dot exports equals to, right? So now you are exporting your complete class, so it will be available for public to use. So once you do this, come back to any class, and if you want to catch that class here, you just need to import that class by calling this keyword called require. Require stands for what class you want, right? So our class is present in basics7.js, right? So dot slash, and you will get that basics7.js here. You see that? Give this file name. So we are saying that we want to get this file, we require this file into this class. And what does it return? What we are exporting here from basics7, we are exporting class itself, right? So the class you can catch here by creating one constant, because you don't want to alter this variable again. That's why I am marking it as a constant. So class is with you now. Okay, now you can still create object for that class, and you can now give the details again of first name and last name. Chris Edward. So this is the first name, last name, right? So I'll create object for this class, and I can still call person dot full name is a method, so I will give this brackets that will point out to me here. Okay, now what is the difference here? Earlier also we did same thing, but here earlier we created object for this class in the same file. Okay, in the same file, after the braces are done, we created object and we called. That's fine, because it is in the same file, we did not need to call any module.exports. But when you want to access this class completely in different file, you first of all have to export this class, right? So that anyone can catch it. If you don't give this exports, even if you use this require import, that will not help. It will tell that person is not recognized. It will get recognized only when you give this module.exports. So once you export, so this is how you can import back with a require keyword. Okay, so once you get the class here, for that class you will create object again with person, and you will call the full name. You should see Chris Edward will be concatenated and printed, because in this full name method it's trying to concatenate first name and last name. So when you create object of this Chris and Edward, automatically this default constructor is called. So in this default constructor, the two names will come here and it will be assigned to its local instance variables. So that way these will get activated, and when you call this method, these will get executed. Okay, so before you run, make sure you comment all these, because you are ending up creating multiple objects here. So you are treating this class as just an entity which have all these locations, right? And now you are exporting this class. So if you don't comment this, then you are exporting all these details also, with which your file will get confused, because here you are creating new objects and then still you are creating here. So that's why in real time we will not create anything here. Okay, so we will reuse this class in our main files by using like this require and exporting that, and here you can call it. Okay, so node basics 5.js, you see that Chris Edward is printed in the output. Okay, so this is coming from your strings. Okay, that means we have successfully exported our class and we are reusing class methods in another files also. So this is one of the common use case in automation testing projects, that we will have one class and we will have all page object files and some functions related to that page in this class, and then we will export that class to our actual test case, and using that object we will try to call the methods to test and complete our script, right? So this is the common use case we get, and this is how you do it. Okay, so from another file, now you are able to change the parameters every time when you create a new object, and based upon that you will be able to get your methods executed. So only thing you want to remember here is using the require keyword and exports. Don't miss this, and also make sure you comment out all these code. Okay, so if you try to execute any object creation in your own class, that will lead us to errors. Okay, so that's pretty much about importing and exporting classes. So there is one more concept left, which is inheritance, which we'll see in our next lecture. Thank you. Alright, so let's talk about inheritance in this lecture. So what is inheritance? So this is one of the main pillar in object-oriented programming, where one class, let's say you create a class here, this class can inherit or acquire the properties and methods of any other class. Okay, so that means you can be able to access all these methods, properties directly into the new class. So earlier also we did this. I think we imported that class and we have used this. Okay, so this is one way.
but here there is no class. This is a plain JavaScript, right? But if you create a new class, so that class will automatically have the knowledge of all these properties and methods if you implement inheritance concept. Okay, so if this is the class which is going to take all those properties, then we call this as a subclass or derived class or child class, and the class whose properties are inherited. Now in this lecture, these properties we will inherit to this child class. So this class we call it as a super class or parent class. Okay, so let me give one real-time example so that you will understand. So, so earlier our class is all about a person, right? Where is that? Yeah, here. So this is our class. It represents a person about their age, their location, and how to get their full name by constructing first and last concatenation. So let's say I want to build now an entity for a pet. It could be any pet. Okay. So this is my class name for pets in that region. So most of them I can reuse here. Okay, so full name I can reuse because pet also may have first name and last name, and if you need to get full name, obviously you will apply same logic of concatenation. Okay, so I can reuse this full name, and if location is also same, then I can reuse it. Okay, so that's the reason what I am doing. This pet class want to inherit the properties of parent class. So if I want to do that, then I have to give keyword called extends. So this extends keyword will help to achieve inheritance. So you have to give parent class here, and that's all. So if you give like this, that means you are successfully inheriting a person which is a parent class to its child class. And one more thing you have to do, you have to give this import to tell that where that parent class is. Oops. So for that require dot slash basic 7, and you can say let's give capital name so that I can change it back. Right. And this is the basic thing you have to do. And thereafter, so if parent class have any constructor, then your child class also should implement same kind of constructor. That's a rule of inheritance. Okay, basically from both parent and child, constructors should be same. So let's start with constructor first name last name. And another rule here is that you have to call your parent class constructor as a first step in your child class constructor. Okay. So if you define a child class by inheriting from parent, and if you create a constructor in it, the mandatory step 1 what you have to do if you achieve inheritance is to call the parent class constructor. So how would you call parent class constructor now? It's very simple, guys. The only keyword you have is super. The super keyword will just go ahead and call parent class constructor. You see that when I type super, it is saying person. See, it's automatically showing that it's a parent class constructor. Now in the parent class constructor, you are taking 2 arguments, right, to call it. So you have to provide same 2 arguments here. That's all. So this is what mandatorily you have to do if you have a constructor in parent class. Now, so let's say location varies from person to pet. So for person, location is about gathering all the people who are in Canada. So for pet, let's have a property, location property, and here I would say get from Red Cross. Basically all pets will be present in Red Cross also, right? Sorry, it's a Blue Cross. This is one of the organization where they take care of all the pets.
Okay, so let's give that location name. Now, for pet also, you have to define first name, last name, and you have to have a full name method which concatenates first and last. But you need not create it because that method is already there in the parent class and you are extending it. So automatically that method will be available in this pet class also, in this child class also. You really need not again define that method. Okay, the main purpose of inheritance is to avoid duplicate code by simply extend your parent class. So I wrote location method again because my code is different. So I have overridden this method from the parent. Even if I don't write this, I will be still be able to access location method. But that location method will execute parent class method. If you think you have your own implementation in your child class for location method, you can declare it. Okay. Now for full name, if you think that this is the same implementation even I want in a pet class, then you can avoid it. So this method will all automatically have knowledge of that because it's extending. Okay. So let me show you now. Now let's create object of this class and call the full name method. Right now full name method is not present here, right? Let's see. New pet, this is how you can create object. So obviously when you create an object, this constructor is called, so you have to send first and last name of your pet, then start with any random first name Sam and San. This is your pet names. Okay, let me create object for that. All right, so when you do pet dot, now you see that full name, this method is automatically available for you. Okay, so this will go ahead and concatenate Sam and San and it will print in the output. So basically how it happens, so when you pass first name and last name here, those first name and last name details are going to your parent class constructor. Okay, so you are sending these values again into your parent class constructor by calling this super method. So these two names, from here they reach here, from here they reach here to this point. So this method now will get executed. So when this method gets executed, Sam San will be here, right? So those will be feeded into the local instance variables of this person, first name and last name. Okay, and then when you try to call full name method, as these variables are already loaded with Sam and San, when you try to concatenate, those are available here also. That way concatenation will form and you will see your output. Okay, so this is how magic happens. So basically to execute and reuse your methods of your parent class, these values you need. That's why you are exactly creating same constructor in your child class also and sending those values to your parent class constructor, so that all variables will be activated and you can happily use this methods. Now let me also say pet dot location. Okay, let's see what this will print us. Go ahead and uncomment it, and L should be small letter because when you want to override from your parent class, here I gave small letter, right? Okay, so let me run and see the output. You see that Sam, San and Blue Cross are printed in the output. Okay, so you don't have any logic here to concatenate full name in your pet class. Just because you are extending it, you are able to use it. But location method is present here in parent and child, but it will give preference to the child, its own class. If it found in two places, then it overrides and give preference to your own child class, and it's shown that. If you comment out this and here now location is not present, right? Then it goes to its parent class and try to execute the property of parent class. Now when you run this, you see Canada is printing. So as it is not present in your child class, it picked from there. But when you have same method name, it overrides. So this way you can inherit the properties and you can define your own code based upon your logic. Okay, so that's how you can achieve inheritance in JavaScript with extends keyword and calling that class by require import keyword here. But do remember that for everything you have to make sure that you export this class. If you don't export it, then you cannot inherit or you cannot import that class into any other. That possible only when you give this module dot exports keyword. All right, that's pretty much about how you do inheritance in JavaScript. Thank you.